Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is ran by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
My name's Emily. Yes.
Sorry, it disappeared for 2 months.
And in full transparency, not even on purpose. Like, what we planned? We've been trying to get together to record and like do other things literally for probably a month and a half now. Yeah, for like 2 months, month and a half. I don't even remember how long it's been. And like, you know those moments where the universe is just kind of like, you want to do that, but maybe not. That's kind of it. It's like, the one time we set up to record, and then my brother was in a car accident, or whatever, and then we set up another time to record, and then you had a funeral, and then we set up another time to record, and it was somebody's birthday, and I was like, you know what? We'll just make it work when it can work. And now here we are for all of you guys.
I mean, I really wanted to make today work because I was like, if nothing else, we cannot miss our Spooktacular Halloween episode. That would actually crush me because I look forward to this every single year.
Absolutely. And we always do something special for October, which is a mega double bummer because we always have like things planned for this month for recording and stuff. And it literally just did not work out this year.
But we are here today with a extra spooky episode. And we know, based on listenership at least, that you guys love our stories on witches. So that is what we are here to do tonight on, well, the Friday before All Hallows Eve. But maybe you're listening to this on All Hallows Eve. We don't know.
Yeah, it's your life.
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
We can all just pretend right now that you're listening to this on All Hallows Eve, even if it's December 4th. I have no idea.
Halloween is more than a day. It's a feeling. It's a state of being.
It's a lifestyle, at least for me.
It is a lifestyle. Definitely for me, too. I had jack-o'-lantern jazz or lo-fi music on the TV since, like, September 21st. So I'm in this deep.
Dude, I've had it on since August 1st.
No, you're like... That's the thing. I never feel bad about getting fresh into like Halloween and like the spooky stuff like early in the year because I think to myself and I'm like, oh, Jen's already been like having her decorations up for like a couple months now. Like, I'm good.
It's so true. Honestly, though, I just fucking love fall. I love Halloween. It just snowed here, which is really depressing because I was really hoping we could make it until after Halloween, but whatever. I'm gonna not look outside because that's putting me in too much of a holly jolly mood, and I'm not here for that.
Real though, same thing. Snowed where I am, and then like I was looking on my TV because I do like I'm just that super nerd that likes to put the ambient videos on in the background, and I really had to debate between spooky castle ambience or Christmas at Hogwarts. It was a tough one. One.
It's too early for Christmas. November 1st? I like to wait until after Remembrance Day. Mm-hmm. But at least November 1st, you know?
Yeah, at least like start of November, you kind of warm into it.
Yeah. You know, slowly get into the festive vibes. But we're not here for festive. Christmas, dead to me right now. Only Halloween.
Absolutely. All right. And yes, which is very on brand right now, especially for you guys. And it seems like in the world right now, there's like, that show Agatha All Along that's really popular right now. We're just all about the witches.
Yeah. So, let's just jump in right into our wheel of questions.
Hell yeah, brother. I just saw a cord fly into the abyss, and I thought it was my microphone cord. It was not. We're good. Literally spat around the wheel and then flew away. That was so scary. I don't know what that was for. Oh no, I'll figure it out later, I guess.
She's gone now.
Yeah, if you were to be a witch, what kind of witch would you be?
I would like to think that I would be a good witch, but also one who was willing to, you know, I want to be like Marnie from Halloween Town.
Oh, I would say that's a good witch. You see, when you said good witch, I immediately thought of like Wicked and like The Wizard of Oz, which is also very topical right now, I guess, as far
For
as
sure.
like as media stuff.
I feel like for me, Marnie is a good option because she's, you know, fighting for the good of humanity, but also she's like, I'm going to use my powers to write my essay. And I love a lazy queen because that's me on the inside. You know what? Work smarter, not harder, ladies. Am I right?
Oh, always. See, for me, I think I would be like a Sabrina the Teenage Witch kind of girl. Like, not really know what she's doing, but still
the one
here
from
to
the
have a
sitcom in the 90s.
Yeah, that one. Not like the newer one, like the older one, the one where Salem, like the black cat that kind of looks like a puppet, because I'm pretty sure he is a puppet most of the time, is just like a fucking icon every single episode. That's what I want.
I fucking love that for you. That's
Me too.
Truly iconic.
And I love that for you too. All right, let's spin for our next question. Who is your favorite witch?
Favorite witch?
Yes. From anything.
That's a hard question. There's a lot of iconic witches. I'm going to go with Sarah Jessica Parker's character in Hocus Pocus.
Oh, that's a good one. That is iconic.
Or, one of the sisters from, or one of the aunts from Practical Magic.
Ooh, yeah, where they make their midnight margaritas and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a good one.
I just rewatched that, so it's top of mind.
Well, that's good, because we watched it together for the first time, and you fell asleep 5 minutes into it. So I'm glad that you actually re-experienced it for the first time ever, basically.
I did. It was so different than I thought it was.
No, we need to do Midnight Margaritas sometime. That feels very on brand for us. We do.
It would. 100%.
See, I'm tied between... It's a good thing you brought up Practical Magic, actually, because I don't know which in there would be my favorite. Probably, who's the actress with the long black hair?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. I love Sandra Bullock. So I would either pick her as my favorite witch from specifically that movie. But I think if I had to think back in like my life of just media consumption in general, my favorite witch ever that I've had since I was like a little, however many year old it's going to be a little vague. It's the witch from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Because she's just like this British lady who lives out in the countryside and gets spells delivered to her in the mail during World War II. And there's just something about that where I'm like, I kind of appreciate that about you. That's an interesting character you got there. 10 out of 10.
That's kind of just your vibe in general. I feel like if that was available, you would do that.
That's the thing. I think it might just be that I identify a part with that mentality. Because you don't want to go to the store for your spells, you know?
No.
You just get them in the mail.
Way too much of a hassle.
Way too much of a hassle.
If you could order spells on Amazon, I know you would.
This is what I'm saying. Like... I'm like, maybe we are one and the same. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. All right, let's spin for our next question. What is the witchiest thing about yourself? If you had to pick one thing.
I don't know. See, I love learning about witches, and I think like the lore is so interesting. I don't think I have that many witchy behaviors. I think the witchiest thing about me is probably that I'm just like a woman without children, you know, living. Because in like those stories you always hear, it's like
that I'm a woman.
A woman who doesn't have children and that she lives in the woods, you know?
Yeah, that's really funny.
Whereas you are pretty much like everything about you is a witchy vibes.
Literally, that's what I mean. I like wrote this question, and then I like, because when I'm writing them, I obviously try to put like at least not too much thought into it, because I don't want to be overly prepared, because I know that I'm surprising you with a lot of my questions, but at least have like a general idea of stuff. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, for somebody who's not a witch, actually have many, many things that are distinctly witchy about me. I like the crystals. I like taxidermy. I'm a little stitious. The list goes on.
The list is actually endless for you. Mm-hmm. Like, when I think modern witch, like modern and like low-key witch, it's Emily.
It's true. It's true.
If there was a modern low-key witch, it would be Emily.
Pretty much. Or I'm like, ooh, like, I like to collect tarot cards because I think they're pretty. That's what I mean, though. There's so many things where I'm like, I am literally maybe half a step a footway. What did I just say? Half a step a footway? Yeah, I'm that away from being a witch.
Couldn't agree more.
Exactly. Perfect. Love that. Let's then for our last question.
Yes, been away.
What's your take on modern witchcraft?
I don't know that I have strong feelings about it. It's not necessarily for me, but the vibes are impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I wish it was more like The Craft. Have you ever seen that? I feel like I recommended that to you last year.
You did recommend it to me. I've not seen it, but I've seen some clips of it online before. But it's like more gothy, right?
Yeah, it's like goths getting into witchcraft, and that's like, it's what I think of when I think of modern witchcraft, which is just like not correct at all. I can completely acknowledge that it's like not accurate at all and probably very insensitive. I'm so sorry. But like the vibes, immaculate.
See, that's one of those things that's weirdly on my radar. I think because I have friends that dabble more in like actual witchiness stuff, so they're kind of a part of that. But I guess there's some beef in the witch community about modern witchcraft.
Is there? Oh, tell me. Spill all the deets.
I know, and I will. So here's what I know, which feel free, listeners, if you hear something and you're like, that's wrong. Write in, absolutely, because I'm allowed to be wrong. But from my understanding is that a lot of modern witchcraft is very like glamorized in a lot of ways, whereas there's a lot of families who say like practice because it's literally in their family heritage. Like they learned what they know about their practice from their mom or like their grandma, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And those people and modern witches clash a little bit because there's this like, it's kind of almost like an internet thing. Like people will look up spells on the internet basically, and then people who actually like grew up with it are like, that's not right. You can't do that.
That's kind of a lot of things now though, like where everything is so accessible right now that anyone can do it, and
then also too, people can lie is the other thing too. And I think that's a part of where the beef is because people will like be like, ooh, I should write a spell and put it online because it's spooky. And then you have people who actually are trying to practice who like look it up and they're like, oh, I have to do this to make a money jar or whatever. And then the people who actually practice are like, what the fuck is going on here?
Why are all these weird people doing this thing that's just like not correct?
Yeah, or the fact that like in a lot of ways it's become like trendy. I know that's that's a big point of contention too.
I could see that. I think, the commodification of modern witchcraft is probably something that rubs people the wrong way, especially when it's like part of their identity and like their family lineage.
Exactly. Not to mention that there's also a lot of cultural significance too in a lot of different practicing ways. Like people who practice, like say, they practice out of like Mexico versus like North America versus Europe. It's literally all different, similar in some ways, but it's all different. So then it's like, then you've the contention of people who say like their family comes from Europe and they practice a certain way versus people whose family comes from like, Mexico. And that's also another thing too. But like I said, I'm allowed to be wrong. This is just what I know about stuff from what I've seen and heard.
Yeah. It's all so interesting. And I think that wraps up our questions.
Sure does.
All right. Well, I'm going to start us off with a story about a woman named Rhoda Derry. And she was born, funnily enough, on October 10th, which I think is the perfect month for someone to be born in, personally.
10-10. That's a 10 out of 10 birthday.
It is a 10 out of 10 birthday. But she was born on October 10th, 1840. Isn't that fucking crazy that that's like a real year that we could talk about?
And that was like literally 200 years ago. Because when I think about 200 years, I'm like, that's not that long ago. It was kind of a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a crazy long time ago. Mm-hmm. Life would have been so very different back then.
Oh, for sure.
So she was born in Fayette County, Indiana, to her parents Jacob and Rachel Derry. This is something you'll relate to, Em. Rhoda was the youngest of 7 kids, because Emily's got a large family, so I'm sure she
I'm
can
just the
relate.
opposite. I'm the oldest of 6, and it's a journey. I'll say that much.
For sure. So when Rhoda was still young, the family moved to a farm in Adams County, Illinois, in Lima Township, about 10 miles north of Quincy along the Mississippi River. Not much is known about her childhood other than the fact that her nickname was Rhodey, and the Rock Island Argus and Daily Union of November 21st, 1906 reported, "There was a time more than half a century ago when Rhodey was a young and rosy, happy and healthy as any girl in Illinois." The other thing that we really know about her from those early days was that in 1904 report from a Bartonville asylum noted that her father and mother were physically healthy. So there was nothing seemingly wrong with the family or their lineage. In her late teen years, Rhoda fell in love with a neighbor boy named Charles Phoenix. His mother, who was named Nancy, thinking that the Derry family had associations with witchcraft, did not want her son to marry Rhoda. The rumored connection to witchcraft went back to Rhoda's grandmother, Mary Derry of Pennsylvania. The rumor is that in an attempt to prevent their union, Nancy threatened Rhoda with a satanic ritual and a curse, which to me, it sounds more like this lady's a witch.
Yeah, that's a little. I think we're putting our anger in the wrong place here.
She's like, you can't marry a witch. I'm a witch.
There can only be one in the family. You can't do it.
So, after this alleged curse was placed on Rhoda by Nancy, she started, weirdly enough, exhibiting paranoid behavior, claiming to be pursued by a malevolent force. Days after the alleged curse, Rhoda supposedly told her family that she had spoken to Satan lurking in a physical form, something like a wild beast, which she believed was the quote-unquote old scratch, which is what she called the satanic force that she saw. And while visiting one of her sisters, she said that she could see Nancy in the corner and that she believed that the old woman would torment her as long as she lived and her pleasure was done forever. Which, that's a crazy way to describe your prospective mother-in-law.
That is, I kind of love it, but that's on another level.
Iconic. Kind of.
Oh, so iconic.
So during this period, unfortunately, Rhoda's relationship with Charles ended. So this was all for naught. She's cursed and she doesn't even get the boy.
Man, double whammy.
Double whammy. On September 3rd, 1860, following a disturbing episode where an invisible force repeatedly pushed her against the walls at home, Rhoda's mental state deteriorated. She became aggressive, underwent a physical transformation, and was deemed possessed, leading her parents to abandon her at the Poor House Psychiatric Center in Adams, Illinois. She was taken to Jacksonville, And while there, the authorities could not keep the doors on her room locked, nor could they keep her tied with ropes. They would lock the doors at night, but in the morning Rhoda would be out in the yard walking about. When asked who let her out, she said, Nancy. So this mother-in-law is like haunting her.
Literally.
When the keeper of the asylum brought her back, he said that she was not insane, but she did not know what was the matter with her. She was like the man referred to in the New Testament who lived among the tombs. So, as a surprise to absolutely no one, during her stay at the asylum, Rhoda was treated horribly. Like, horribly inhumanely, as I'm sure...
As you do. Yeah.
Literally anyone could have guessed. Mm-hmm. Asylum in the early 1900s, probably not the best place to be.
Yeah, just saying there's some weird coincidences when it comes to these older asylums. It's almost like everybody who goes in there is mistreated, and they're like, why are they getting worse? Why aren't they getting better?
So weird. Who knows? It's a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So she was described as unmanageable by staff. They said she would tear off her clothes, eat anything she could grab, and harm herself, along with the asylum's harsh methods of restraint, which was their justification for keeping her inside a wooden cage-like box known as a Utica crib. For
they put her
years.
In a wooden cage?
Yeah, it literally looks like a crib, but with a top on it and like way shorter than a crib. So, like, you would literally not even be able to sit up.
That's just torture.
Yeah. So for years she lived in a basket of straw cared for her solely by other feeble-minded patients. During this time, her limbs became drawn up to her knees and almost touched her chin. So, like, she's, like, literally, like, in a fetal position.
Yeah, like shrinking.
There they remained day after day, week after week, until the muscles became limp. It was impossible for her to move her legs or her hips. After a while, the basket of straw was dispensed with a square box set on her legs. This box had holes in it so the wounds would drop into a pan beneath. Mice and other vermin crawled into the box, made their nests, and reared their families at the very side of the poor creature. Under such treatment, her malady became more pronounced. With her long fingernails, she scratched her eyes out. With her fists, she beat her face until all of her front teeth had been knocked out. She lost to a degree the power of speech. Placed on the floor, she hopped along on her hands, so doubled up that she looked more like a toad than a human being, wrote Dr. George Zeller, head of the Illinois Asylum for the Incurable Insane in Bartonville.
That is so horrific, though, that, like, the torture's so casual. You literally have a woman morph into, like, a frog position, and they're just like, yeah, we don't know what's wrong with her, but she's here, and also we did this to her, and she's got no eyes now, and that couldn't possibly be our fault. Like, what?
The thought of someone literally scratching their own eyes out keeps me up at night.
Well, that's the thing. And it's like anybody who's at that degree of, like, desperation, that's a bad place.
Yeah. So in September 1904, she was transferred to Bartonville Asylum, and Rhoda spent her final days crawling through the corridors due to her deformed legs. Upon arrival, Rhoda was bathed and set in her own bed for the first time in 44 years.
Okay, that's so sad.
Though unable to see or communicate, Rhoda seemed soothed by the delicate hand of care. She immediately became the object of solitude on part of the nurse, and she had never been a moment out of their sight. Dr. Zeller later wrote, "No nurse ever complained because of the demands upon her time for caring of Rhodie." On October 9th, 1906, one day short of her 72nd birthday, the official story is that she committed suicide. However, there's a lot of speculation that something more happened. That day, Rhoda allegedly had a severe epileptic attack, which prompted a violent outburst, leading a doctor to decide on her tragic end. Her throat was cut, staged as a suicide. Years later, 2 nurses allegedly confessed to the events, but no one faced legal consequences.
Yes. So, kind of just neglect and abuse right up to the end, more or less.
More or less. So, the nurses who cared for her in life were at the side of the grave when last honors were paid to her, Dr. Zeller wrote. And when they returned to their duties, instead of feeling a great burden was lifted from their hands, all were crying. The impression of humane service dutifully rendered has shed its halo about them, and the institution is better for having cared for her. The state is better for having the knowledge that justice was finally done to this long neglected woman. Which I don't know if I will go that far to say justice was served, because she may or may not have been murdered, but at least they gave her a bed for the first time in 44 years.
I don't even have anything to say about that. Like, what?
I'm speechless. Honestly,
Literally
I'm like...
speechless.
So she was late.
Did you?
Like, really, did you? Did you really do your best? Okay. Is that what we're calling it? Sweet. So she was laid to rest under a cement marker labeled simply 217. So not even her name, just a number.
Oh, yeah, because names aren't important. What? Sorry, I had to get that out. This is diabolical.
80 years later, a family put a marble tombstone atop her grave with this message. They built this place of asylum so that no other human would suffer as you. You taught us love and to feel compassion towards the less fortunate. May you find peace and warmth in God's arms. Which is nice that someone finally gave her a name.
Yeah, like that's actually like that I'm sweet on that. The whole, like, you're making a memory out of somebody who literally had nothing for no reason her entire life.
Yeah. So, visitors to Rhoda's grave report feeling a tug on their legs, apparently, which is interesting. And the Catholic Church investigated Rhoda Derry's case and concluded that she was not mentally ill, but a victim of demonic possession.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder how they figured that one out post-mortem.
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
I do find it interesting, though, that, like, because I don't really believe in ghosts, but I know that you do more so. Mm-hmm. And it is an interesting thought to think that she might still be there.
Well, because it depends, too, on, like, how far people take their beliefs, I guess. But I think that, like, with stuff like this, it's almost like, because the one of the theories is that people, because, like, you're living your day-to-day life, doing your day-to-day thing, and if you did something very repetitiously and put a lot of, like, energy into, that kind of carries on afterwards. So it may just be even the imprint of, like, her patterns and stuff that could be left behind in, like, a ghost-like form. I don't know. It's a hard one.
It's true. I hope in some world that she's not there, you know, crouched up.
Thing.
Still, I hope that, like, she's laid to rest.
See, that's what I mean. I'm hoping this is more the thing where they call them spiritual signatures, where it's just kind of like an imprint of your energies left behind, but you're not actually there. She's got to be in heaven or something. She needs a break. Like,
she does need a break.
Oh, yeah. Like, especially in the afterlife. That's literally forever. That was, like, literally 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my tale today of Rhoda. I thought it was really interesting that her, like, family lineage potential ties to witchcraft literally made someone put a curse on her, and it kind of worked. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, if I don't think I really believe in that, mainly because I don't want to, because that's spooky.
But that's why people say that there's a power behind believing in something, because it's like, if somebody were to go up to you and be like, I curse you, but you fully believe that you were cursed, would that not change how you interact with your everyday life and how you see maybe your own mental illness and, like, some other things too, you know?
It's true. And like there could have already been some form of mental illness there before, and like that just exasperated it, or who knows if there was something else in her childhood that we just don't know about that caused
for
it.
sure. Yeah. But who's to say it could be the other way too, where it's just like witchcraft. I don't know.
That Nancy was a witch.
And it could have been. It could have been it. Who's to say?
Who is to say? Honestly, fuck Nancy for putting a curse on this random girl who just liked her son.
This is a good lesson, I think, for everybody. How about we all just try to keep our negativity to ourselves and not curse each other? I feel like life's hard enough without cursing each other. It's not needed.
If you're a boy mom, don't be like Nancy.
No, if you're a boy mom and you're like, yeah, I relate to Nancy in this situation, it might be time for therapy.
You're not okay.
Yeah, it's
I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah. All right. Well, do I get into my story now?
Yes, take it away, Em.
All right. First, I want to do a celebratory crack.
Okay.
Crack and sip.
I'll crack
Ready?
open my...
For festivity reasons.
Yes.
Ooh, crispy. Wet the palate before I get into it.
Let's go, bitch.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of a historical deep dive today. Because I wanted to cover a witch that a lot of people have actually probably heard of, at least in like modern retellings in a way, because she's almost kind of morphed into like a trope.
Okay.
So I have a description set up, even though like I'm not doing a description for today's episode. So I'll just read that and then you can tell me if you've heard of her before, and if you have heard of her, what like you kind of know of her.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Morgan le Fay is alternatively known as just a Morgan or Morgaine, Morgan, Morgante, or Morgan. Among other names and spellings, is a powerful and ambiguous enchantress and from the legend of King Arthur, in which she and he are often siblings. Early appearances of Morgan in Arthurian literature do not elaborate her character beyond her role as a goddess, a fae, or a witch or a sorceress, generally benevolent and connected to Arthur as his magical savior and protector. Her prominence increased as the legend of Arthur developed over time, as did her moral ambivalence, and in some texts there is an evolutionary transformation of her to an antagonist, particularly in her portrayal of a cynical prose such as the Tale of Lancelot and the Holy Grail, and then another one called the Post-Vulgate Cycle. A significant aspect in many of Morgan's medieval and later iterations is that she's the unpredictable duality of her nature with potential for both good and evil.
I feel I've definitely heard her name referenced. I don't really know much about her though. Like I never looked into it.
Yeah. So basically, when I'm talking like about her having modern iterations, people will usually name antagonistic females who have some kind of like magical ability in like cartoons or shows. I'm trying to think of like something specific, but sometimes they don't call her just Morgan. Like these characters, they don't call her Morgan. It'll be characters named like Morgana or
Morgano.
Like other M names, but they're really all relating just to this one specific figure, which comes from the original story of King Arthur.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Right? So, I am going to get into it because it's a chunk of information, so I am going to work through the best I can. It's obviously not going to be everything about her, by the way, everybody, because I literally found it was like at least 20 pages of information about like her life, her history, her retellings, like poetry written about her, different takes on her around the world. So I'm keeping it very basic today for all of our sake, but just so we're aware.
All right, take her away, Em.
All right, so her character may have originated from Welsh mythology as well as from other ancient and medieval myths and historical figures. The earliest documented account by Geoffrey of Monmouth in Vita Merlini, which was written in the year 1150. So in the Wayback Machine today, refers to Morgan in association with the Isle of Apples, also known as Avalon, which is where King Arthur's from. To which... You good? Okay. To which Arthur was carried after having been fatally wounded in the Battle of Camlan as the leader of the 9 magical sisters unrelated to Arthur. Therein, and in the early chivalric romances by Chrétien de Troyes and others, Morgan's chief role is that of a great healer. Several of numerous and often unnamed fairy mistress and maiden temptress characters found through the Arthurian romance genre may also be considered as appearances of Morgan in her different aspects. Romance authors of the late 12th century established Morgan as Arthur's supernatural elder sister, and then in the 13th century prose styles and later works based on them, including the influential Le Morte d'Arthur, she is usually described as the youngest daughter of Arthur's mother Igraine and her first husband Golorus. Arthur, son of Igraine and Uther Pendragon, is thus Morgan's half-brother, and her full sisters include Mordred's mother, the Queen of Orkney, and the young Morgan unhappily marries Urien, with whom she has a son Yvain. She then becomes the apprentice of Merlin, and a capricious and vindictive adversary of some of the Knights of the Round Table, all the while harboring a special hatred for Arthur's wife Guinevere, and in this tradition she's also sexually active and even predatory, taking numerous lovers that may include Merlin and Acolin, which I know I just went on a big old random tangent there. I just gotta throw this in. I feel like that's not something I've ever heard of or seen, that she was engaging in sexual relationships with her half-brother Arthur.
Oh,
in a lot of these retellings since the year 1150.
I have 3 thoughts, okay? First of all, I want to be the apprentice to Merlin. Second of all,
dream job. Yeah, iconic.
Literally, what do I need to put on my resume?
Oh, could you imagine having that on your resume? Like, I'd be unstoppable. I could get any job I wanted.
Second of all, honestly, what do you expect from a woman who you forced to marry someone she doesn't want to marry? She's gonna fuck other people. Third of all, why her brother? That's where her and I have beef. I'm sorry, I was on your side, girly pop, until that moment.
That's what I mean, though. Like, everything I read, I'm like, okay, like, get it, whatever. And yeah, it's, may include Arthur, Merlin,
Merlin
Acolin.
I get. Okay?
Here's the thing. Imagine you're the apprentice of a wizard named Merlin, okay? You're spending all your days with him. It's all magical. I can see it. You're locked in a study with this Merlin fella. You know, girly, I'm with you on this one. I can see it.
He got his beard brother up in your cooch.
Yeah. Ugh. Yum.
Oh, sick.
So sick. But like, yeah, your brother and whoever this Acolin fellow is, which I believe he's another one of the Knights of the Round Table or something. But like,
you know what? She wants to fuck a knight. Let her fuck a knight. Just don't fuck your brother.
You can literally have all of the knights. If the table's round, there's so many of them. You can have Merlin. You can have any knight you want. Your brother?
Stop it right now.
No.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw up.
Right? But that's what I mean, though. Like, her history and everything, I'm like, okay, so, like, some of the family stuff I was familiar with, like, the dad's name being Uther Pendragon, because that comes up a lot with, like, some of the retellings and stuff, too. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I did not realize that she had so much, like, complexity to her character.
I didn't know she was a brother fucker.
I did not know that either. It's what it is.
I'd like to unknow it, actually.
Same. Unfortunately, we're now all on the same page. But she also has an unrequited love for Lancelot.
Ooh.
Which, if some people who are listening to the show are familiar with, like, the story of King Arthur, Lancelot is one of the Knights of the Round Table who Guinevere... So Arthur is into this girl named Guinevere, right? Guinevere loves both Arthur and Lancelot. They're like a little love triangle.
That's why she's got beef with Gwen.
That's exactly right. She's like, you're trying to take my brother away from me? Hell no. And also she's in love with, apparently Morgan's also in love with Lancelot, which just tells me that both Morgan and Lancelot must be babes. That's what I've gathered out of this.
Yep.
So in some variants, including in the popular retelling of by Mallory, Morgan is the greatest enemy of Arthur, scheming to usurp his throne and indirectly becoming an instrument of his death. However, she eventually reconciles with Arthur, retaining her original role of taking him on his final journey to Avalon. Many other medieval and Renaissance works feature continuations of her evolutionary tale from the aftermath of Camlann, as she becomes the immortal Queen of Avalon in both Arthurian and non-Arthurian stories, sometimes alongside Arthur. After a period of being largely absent from contemporary culture, Morgan's character again rose to prominence in the 20th and 21st centuries, appearing in a wide variety of roles and portrayals. Notably, her modern character is frequently conflated with her sisters as mother of Arthur's son and nemesis Mordred, the status that Morgan herself never had in medieval legend. So, that's just kind of basically what I told you already. Her character through the retelling up until the 20th and 21st century. Now she's taking on a more antagonistic role in this in the retellings.
I see, because they always have to make women who don't conform villains.
Mm-hmm. It's a coincidence.
How classic.
Very classic. So Morgan first appears by name in Vita Merlini, written by Norman Welsh cleric Geoffrey of Monmouth. Purportedly an account of the life of Merlin, it elaborates some episodes from Geoffrey's more famous earlier work, which was Historia Regum Britanniae, in the year 1136. In Historia...
That's not a real year.
Yeah, I know. I read that and I was like, whoa. Like,
that's crazy.
Oh. Yeah, like, talk about thinking about, like, the year you mentioned,
days.
which was, what, 1840. Yeah, trying to think back to, like, the 1000s. That's a journey.
Wow. When dinosaurs roamed the earth.
I don't think so yet, but... I mean, this guy was writing the Historia Regum Britanniae. So I think the dinosaurs at least maybe died a couple of years before that.
Maybe like one.
Yeah, at the very least one, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard
Sounds
to say,
like
though.
hocus pocus.
There's a little bit of hocus pocus. So, in Historia, Geoffrey relates how King Arthur, gravely wounded by Mordred at the Battle of Camlann, is taken off to the Blessed Isle of Apple Trees, which in Latin is Insula Pomorum, Avalon, to be healed.
I want to go to the Blessed Isle of Apple Trees.
I know. Well, that's what they're saying
awesome.
when they say the Kingdom of Avalon. It's basically the Kingdom of Apple Trees. And it sounds beautiful.
Applefest?
Applefest. Oh, gotta go to Applefest. Oh God, where was I? To be healed. Avalon is also mentioned as the place where Arthur's sword, Excalibur, was forged, which I feel like a lot of people know what Excalibur is.
You sure do. That one I know.
I don't know. So Joffrey's Arthur does have a sister whose name is Anna, but the possibility of her being a predecessor of Morgan is unknown. However, in the Vita Merlini, Joffrey describes this island in more detail and names Morgan as the chief of 9 magical queen sisters who dwell there, ruling in their own right. Morgan agrees to take Arthur, delivered to her by Taliesin, to have him revived. She and her sisters are capable of shape-shifting and flying, which I wish I was, and at least seemingly use their powers for good.
Well, that's good. That's positive.
Right. Yeah, we're going something here, right?
Yeah. So, we're moving away from the brother fucking and going somewhere better.
Yeah. Yeah, we've taken her out of, like, okay, she is a sex maniac who's in love with everybody, and now it's like, no. She's the eldest of a bunch of sisters who shapeshift and fly, and they're gonna save Arthur in the land of apple trees. So this is where we are now.
That's slay. I love that for her.
I know. Morgan is also said to be a learned mathematician and having taught it and astronomy to her fellow sisters and her... I know. Like,
how
she's
iconic.
Amazing. So iconic. So her sisters, their names
This is a way better version of her.
I know. I like read it and I was like, oh, this is so good. So, her sisters' names are Morano, Mazo, Gleaton, Glatonia, or Glatonia, Glayton, Tyrono, Thetis, and Thetone.
Wow, those are some very interesting names.
I don't know a single person named any of those things, so...
So add it to your baby name list, ladies and gents.
Ooh,
You'll have the most unique name.
2025 baby name list.
Glinto.
Yeah, Gleaton, Gleatone, Tyrono, Teton. These are some gold ones right here, guys.
Write it down. Jot it down in your little notebooks.
So that version is kind of like one of her earliest, her earliest depictions of the start of her character, where she's also being painted in like a good light. It's more
the icon days.
So icon. It's definitely a lot more predominant though that she gets painted in the light of like seductive witch. That's kind of like the big thing that comes up in a lot of people's works. Like in the notes that I cut out because they were a little bit too long. Like they have like a bunch of there's a certain name for it. It's not poetry or stories. It's kind of like somewhere in the middle. But out of Italy, of her literally just being naked all the time, and there's a bunch of like paintings of her.
That's everyone in Italy
wandering around and like casting spells and seducing men, which is still iconic. But it's interesting that that's kind of like the consistency between all these retellings.
So she's just very European. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's very European. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but what about Guinevere and Arthur? And I'm going to tell you
that's exactly what I was thinking. You read my mind.
I can, and I did. So,
You're a witch.
What is this? Witch! Witch! Sorry, I had to.
Witch!
So, what is this deal between Morgan, Guinevere, and Arthur? Because she hates Guinevere, and I guess sometimes is fucking her brother, and her brother becomes the king, and Guinevere and Arthur are together, so what's going on? And I'm going to tell you.
And they're all doing this at Applefest.
And it's all happening at Applefest. So, Arthur betroths her as his ally, and then King Urin of Gore, the realm described as an otherworldly northern British kingdom, possibly the historical region. So in other earlier versions have alternately named Morgan's husband as Nitries of Garlot, who later was recast as the husband of her sister Elaine. So, now a queen, but unhappy with her husband, Morgan serves as a lady-in-waiting to the High Queen, Arthur's newly married young wife Guinevere. So that was kind of a messy beginning, because I had to kind of like mix my notes around and take out some stuff. Basically prefacing, Arthur has himself betrothed to Guinevere, right off the get-go. Guinevere is a ally of the Kingdom of Avalon's like daughter. It's like another king's daughter. So they're uniting the kingdoms this way. And this kingdom that she comes from is like a otherworldly, fictitious version of England, specifically in this retelling.
Okay.
And then basically Morgan is married to this guy that she hates called Nintres in this version.
Okay.
So we're on the page. So basically, now a queen but unhappy with her husband, Morgan serves as a lady waiting for the High Queen, Arthur's newly married young wife Guinevere. At first, Morgan and the also young Guinevere are close friends, even wearing shared near-identical rings. However, everything changes when Morgan is caught in an affair with her lover Guomar by Guinevere. So, Morgan fucking hates her husband. I know, scandal. Morgan hates her husband, Nintres. She says, fuck you, Nintres. I'm going to take up with Guomar. And then Guinevere, who's technically her boss, even though they're both queens, because she's like the High Queen because she's married to Morgan's brother, and he's the High King, walks in on them and she's like, oh my god, you're cheating on your husband with this guy.
Slut.
Slut. And Guomar is Guinevere's cousin.
Oh my god.
I know.
It's so messy.
So juicy. It's so messy. So, I keep losing my spot in my notes. I just get too excited and then I have to look at you. Aw. So, yeah, gets caught with Guomar by Guinevere. Guomar is depicted as Guinevere's cousin. And also, in some iterations, he is, if he's not Guinevere's cousin, then he's Guinevere's early lover. So, like, an ex-boyfriend, basically.
The scandal!
I know! So the High Queen intervenes to break their relationship and prevent the loss of honor. And according to some scholarships, it's also possibly because of Guinevere's perception of Morgan, with her kinship and close relationship with Arthur, as a rival in political power. So they're kind of like besties, but with like slight competitive... There's like some slight competitive things going on. And then also they have to maintain a certain image because they're both queens in the same court, even though Guinevere's kind of like above Morgan. But also Morgan's older, by the way, than Guinevere.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
The drama. Who needs Jersey Shore when you've got this?
When you've got King Arthur? That's what I'm saying. Caesar's arrival in political power, and this incident included in the prose Merlin and expanded in the Vulgate Lancelot, which are basically just like two additional iterations of this story, or like revisions. And the post-Vulgate Suite de Merlin, the Huth Merlin, begins a lifelong feud between Guinevere and Morgan, and leaves the court of Camelot with all of her wealth to seek out Merlin and greater powers. So, again, all about that. Basically, this story got revised a couple times, and within this revision, Morgan, after she's caught sleeping with this guy by Guinevere, and Guinevere gets all like, you can't do that because of this reasons, and blah, 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 blah. Morgan's basically like, fuck you, I'm gonna go hang out with Merlin, and he's gonna teach me magic.
Icon behavior, I'll say it.
Alright, I'm kind of with her at this point. So, seek out Merlin and greater powers. She's pregnant at this time when she leaves to go work with Merlin.
With Merlin's baby?
No.
By magic?
She's pregnant with Guinevere's cousin, Guomar's baby. She's pregnant with Guomar's baby.
So scandalous.
So scandalous. She later gives birth to Guomar's son, and he's not named in the story, but he is said to grow up to become a great knight, which is good for him. So
that is good for him.
That is good for him. Morgan then either undertakes or continues her studies of dark magic under Merlin, who is enamored with her, and details of which widely vary depending on the retelling. So I'm not saying they're fucking, but
they're fucking.
But they're fucking. Good for them. Good for them. So for instance, it's Morgan who finds Merlin, in one of the iterations, which is called the prose Merlin, Morgan finds Merlin, who she loves passionately. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge.
In the Livre des Artistes, where Morgan's first lover is a knight named Bertolai. It is rather Merlin who goes to live with Morgan and her two ladies-in-waiting for a long time following the betrayal of him by Nanaine, again, 2025 baby name of the year, who is also
Top
the
of
Lady
the
of the
list.
Lake. Yeah, who's also the Lady of the Lake, which I feel like I
want to be the Lady of the
lot.
Lake.
I know.
You're the Lady of the Lake.
I am the Lady of the Lake. But like, but that's what I mean. Where I'm like, it drives me crazy that I have to circle back constantly. But each of these reiterations and retellings and revisions that they've done to this story, it's weird because it's almost like here's how I picture it. I feel like this will make it make sense to everybody. You've got your core storyline, which is the tree of the story, right? Which is the King Arthur one. From there, you have where they branch off, where they're still the same story. It's just they're slightly different versions, and then some of them build onto each other and stuff like that. So we're just following the branches right now of the Arthur story.
Yeah.
So, in the Livre d'Artes, which is like another branch off the tree, where Morgan's first lover is the knight, basically what I just said is that Merlin and the Lady of the Lake are like coupled up, and he's living with Morgan, but in that version they're not fucking, and they just live in this house with like her two ladies in waiting, and he was betrayed by the Lady of the Lake with her other lover.
Oh my god, this scandal never stops.
He just cannot catch a break, man.
Poor Merlin.
And then everything happened just as Morgan wished for him to do. And then in the post-Vulcanate suite, again, another branch off the tree, Morgan has been tutored by Merlin even before her relationship with Guamar, and later she returns back to Merlin to learn more from him. They meet at Lot's funeral, Lot being one of the knights at the Round Table, during which time Morgan is pregnant with Yvain, which is her son that she had with Guamar still. And after Merlin teaches her so much, she then gets the title of wisest woman in the world, which I cannot tell you. If Merlin gave me the title wisest woman in the world, I would literally never shut up about it. Everybody would know. I'd be like, see, you can't be, because he's literally the wizard. Not a wizard. There is only one. And he is right here telling me that I am the wisest woman in the world.
He's telling me you're so dumb and I am so wise. So get fucked.
Yeah, get fucked, Dan. You gotta listen to me forever. That's what I hear.
I'm just very wise.
So wise.
I just know everything.
Right? So then after he teaches her and she becomes the wisest woman in the world, Morgan scorns and drives Merlin away by threatening to torture and kill him if he won't leave her alone.
At the end of the day, she is a woman and he is a man.
And he is a man. Yeah, that's literally what I read. I was like,
it is.
Well, he is a man, so that checks out.
He may be the wizard, but he's probably also annoying.
Yep, that's exactly right. Which causes him great sorrow out of his foolish love for Morgan.
Wah, wah. First the Lady of the Lake, and now this.
Yeah, right? So far, everything I've read about her and seen about her, I'm like, yeah, that checks out. Yeah, I could see that.
It all makes sense.
It does. So then in the Vulgate, Lancelot, another branch off the tree, Morgan learns all of her magic only from Merlin, which I have to specify not only from Merlin, because in some tellings of this story, they say that she learns her magic from a nunnery, which I don't know what kind of nunneries were back in the 1000s. I don't feel like that's right.
I would love to go to a nunnery to learn magic. I think that could be my calling.
Be a novel experience.
It would. Like, you go to Rome, you stay at a nunnery and learn some magic for like...
Right? You know what it feels
10
like?
euro?
It feels like when you go on Airbnb experiences.
Yes.
It's something the locals
yes, it
offer.
does.
Doesn't it? It's like, oh my god, I get to learn tarot at a nunnery. Like, that's what it feels like.
The OG Airbnb experience.
I could cast runes at a nunnery, guys. Should I book it? It's only $50.
Fuck, I gotta book it. It's basically like free.
It's basically free. So, in any case, having finished her studies under Merlin, Morgan begins scheming her vengeance as she tries to undermine virtue and achieve Guinevere's downfall wherever she can. So more or less, it doesn't matter like what branch of the story you're reading or whatever. She fucking hates Guinevere and like all of them. She's like, this bitch caught me with my man. She sent me away to learn magic with this old fool. She took my brother away and he's sexy. Like, she just is
That's the darkest timeline.
That is the darkest timeline. But she just constantly is having issues with Guinevere. And while Morgan's agnostic actions in the Vulgate cycle, which is one of the branches, have been motivated by her great hatred, which is so funny because in my notes it does occasionally say like the phrase in Latin, because it's kind of like it's just kind of interesting to see the medieval language telling of the story versus today. So great hatred, like this. So basically, whenever she's talking about Guinevere, it's prefaced with this great hatred. So it's like in all of these stories, when they write about Guinevere and Morgan, it's like Morgan with her great hatred of Guinevere. So how you say that medievally is literally grand haine. So Morgan and her grand haine towards Guinevere. And I'm like, ooh, that does kind of give it a little bit of it's a little sprinkle of something on there.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of spice.
A little bit of spice. And in the post-Vulgate cycle, where Morgan's explicitly evil nature is directly stated and accented, she also works to destroy Arthur's rule and end his life. So that is the darkest timeline, where she's trying to kill her brother, basically. And in
you
the
won't fuck me? Well, I'll end you.
Die. If I can't have you, nobody can.
Mwah, ha, ha, ha.
Pretty much. And in the most famous and important of these machinations is introduced in the post-Vulgate suite, where she arranges her devoted lover Accolon, one of the Knights of the Round Table, to obtain the enchanted sword Excalibur, as well as its protective scabbard, which a scabbard is just like the sleeve that the sword goes into. That's what they pull it out of. And which has been previously confided to Morgan by Arthur himself, as he trusted her even more than his wife, replacing the real ones with fakes. So she's just taken him for like a run. He's like, I trust you more than my wife, protect this sword. And she's like, cool, I'm going to take it and replace it with a fake, because fuck you.
She had to do what she had to do.
She had to do what she had to do. In a conspiracy with the villainous Lord Damas, Morgan plans for Accolon to use Arthur's own magical items against him in a single combat, so that her and her beloved Accolon would then become rulers in his stead. As part of her convoluted plan, both Arthur and Accolon are spirited away from their hunt with Urin, or not Urin, Urin? It could be Urin, but it's probably not. I believe that's Arthur's dad. No, Arthur's dad is Uther. I can't remember who he's supposed to be. There's a lot of names in this, but they're out hunting with him. And
some guy.
But this guy, and they get spirited away by a magical boat with 12 damsels. Confident of her upcoming victory, Morgan also attempts to murder her sleeping husband Urin. Okay, so Urin in this case is it's not like the other iteration where she's married to that guy named Nepatiti or whatever his name is.
Nepatiti?
So she's with this guy Urin instead. There's so many names! Right. What do you want from me? And I don't speak medieval Latin or medieval English.
Literally, top baby name of 2025 till forever is Nepatiti.
Please, if anybody's having a baby in 2025, please! They'll never get made fun of. It's just too good. They'll never get made fun of.
Never.
Oh my god. So Urin is Morgan's husband in this timeline, I guess. So she tries to murder him in his sleep with his own sword, but then she's stopped by their son, Yvain, who pardons her when she protests that she was under the devil's powers and promises to abandon her wicked ways.
Ooh.
Wicked ways. After Arthur nevertheless mortally defeats Accolon in a duel arranged by Morgan, her former mentor Merlin, still having feelings for her, saves her from Arthur's wrath by enabling her to escape. So what I'm learning too, or what I have learned while looking at my notes for the story, is Merlin's a simp. It does not matter what timeline it is or what story, the man is down bad for Morgan and her wicked ways.
In every branch of this tree, Man's has got it bad for her.
But you know what? The wizard wants to be with the witch.
Makes sense.
It's written in the stars.
It's pretty serendipitous, if you ask me.
Very serendipitous. Where was I? Still having feelings for her saves her from Arthur's wrath, enabling her to escape. So, to avenge Accolon's death, which had caused her great sorrow, Morgan again steals the scabbard from the sleeping king, and pursued by Arthur for her betrayal, Morgan throws the scabbard into a lake before temporarily turning herself and her entourage to stone, the sight of which makes Arthur think that they had already been punished by God. The action of Morgan ultimately causes the death of Arthur, like that specific action. I think I said the action. But her turning herself into stone and throwing the scabbard in the lake causes the death of Arthur, who otherwise would have been protected by the magic of the scabbard in his final battle. So on her way out, Morgan saves Arthur's knight named Manison from certain death when she learns Accolon was Manison's cousin, and it enables him to kill his captor. Which, like, it's kind of funny. It's like, okay, so I'm so sad, threw the scabbard in the lake. Now Arthur's gonna die someday because he's not protected by the scabbard of his sword. Also, Accolon had a cousin? And she's like, okay, and what's he doing? What does he need?
So much drama. Who knew medieval times were so dramatic?
Right?
Like, where are the dinosaurs?
And where are all... That's what I'm saying. So, in the same narrative, having been banished from Camelot, Morgan then retires to her lands in the magical kingdom of Gore, and then to her castle near the stronghold of Turok, which is possibly North Wales in this retelling. However, her treacherous attempts to bring about Arthur's demise are repeatedly frustrated by the king's new sorceress advisor Nene, the Lady of the Lake. So, the Lady of the Lake in this version becomes the new, like, Morgan in Arthur's court, and Morgan is not a big fan of that.
I'd be pissed.
Right? She's like, she took my fucking job while I'm over here living in Wales? How dare she?
What the fuck? Merlin, get control of your lady.
Well, Merlin's kind of into the Lady of the Lake, too. He's like, I just got a thing for strong women with magic, and he had a type, and he knew it.
At least he knows that about himself.
Right? So, an iconic case of Morgan's such further and underhanded plots to kill Arthur in the post-Vulgate occurs when Morgan sends him a supposed offering of peace in the form of a rich mantle cloak. But Morgan's messenger maiden is made to put on the gift first by Nene's advice to Arthur, for if she dies of it, Morgan will be angrier than anything else that could happen to her, for she loves her with great love. Yeah, for she loves her with very great love. So the girl indeed falls dead, and Arthur has her body burned. It is possible that this motif was inspired by classical stories like that how Medea killed her rival for Jason's affection, or how Deianira sent a poisoned tunic to Hercules. So they think that that specific part of the story is basically influenced by other mythologies of the time, which is possible.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And the reasons for Morgan's hatred of her brother in the post-Vulgate narrative is never really fully explained other than just by a natural, extreme antipathy against the goodness by the evil that which she is the embodiment of. Which basically just means that she naturally polarizes against Arthur because he's so good that it has to make her so evil.
He just wants to be the good guy, and he can't handle anyone else getting in his story, is what I'm hearing.
He just feels like big main character energy. But now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but what about after all this drama? What happened to the Kingdom of Avalon, where the apple orchards are, and Applefest?
Yeah, what happened to Applefest?
So, it is said that Morgan concentrates on witchcraft to such a degree that she goes to live in seclusion in exile of faraway forests. She learns more spells than any other woman and gains an ability to transform herself into an animal. So this takes place many years later within Avalon, which is the kingdom that Arthur rules over. So this is not happening concurrently. This is after. I just feel like I need to reiterate that. So she learns more spells than any other woman alive, gains the ability to transform herself into any animal, and people then begin to call her Morgan the Goddess. And in the post-Vulgate version of Quest del Saint Graal, or the Quest of the Holy Grail, Lancelot has a vision of hell where Morgan still will be able to control demons even in the afterlife as they torture Guinevere. In one of her castles, Tugan in Garlot, Morgan has hidden a magical book given to her by Merlin, which actually prophesied the deaths of Arthur and Gawain, who would kill them, but no one can read this passage without dying instantly. And in the Vulgate La Morte le Roi Artù, the death of King Arthur, also just known as the Mort Artù, Morgan ceases troubling Arthur and vanishes for a long time. The king assumes her to be dead, and then one day he and Sagramor, one of the knights from the Round Table, wander into Morgan's incredibly beautiful castle while lost in a forest, where Arthur is received extremely well and instantly reconciles with his sister. Overjoyed with their reunion, the king allows Morgan to return to Camelot, but she refuses and declares her plan to move to the Isle of Avalon, where the women live who know all of the world's magic, so that she can dwell there with a group of unspecified other sorceresses. However, disaster strikes Arthur when the sight of Lancelot's frescoes and Morgan's confession finally convince him about the truth of the rumors of the two's secret love affair, which he was already warned by his nephew Agravain. So Lancelot and Morgan are now having an affair with each other, and Lancelot can't be doing that because he's the head of the Round Table, Arthur's best friend, and he's already been technically having an on-again, off-again affair with Guinevere. So that's a big no-no.
What a dog.
Yep, he's like, Lancelot, you're my best friend. You were already fucking my wife, and now you're fucking my sister?
Man just knows how to get it.
He must be good at dicking it down. Or he's
really
super handsome. That's what I'm saying. Like, he pulls.
I feel like historically Lancelot is like a hunky man.
He's usually like, I know at least in like cartoons and stuff, he's always like a big buff blonde. Or like a beefy brunette. But yeah, he definitely's got the riz, as the kids would say. Pulls, he's got all that. He's just, it's his world, we're just living in it.
Honestly, I'm okay with it.
So basically, but Arthur kind of already knew because he was warned by his nephew about this, and this leads to a great conflict between Arthur and Lancelot, which brings down the Fellowship of the Round Table, which is a big thing because that's kind of like their political party, I guess, the Knights of the Round Table. Like, they're different. They each own different sections of land around the kingdom. So to bring down the downfall of that, you've basically dissolved Arthur's kingdom. So that's kind of like a big deal.
That's a bit of a yikes.
Imagine an affair so strong it brings down the government. Crazy.
Honestly, pretty iconic.
It's I can't lie. It's pretty iconic. And then at the end of the Vulgate Mort Artù, Morgan is the only one recognized among the black hooded ladies who take the dying Arthur to his final rest and possible revival in Avalon. Depending on the manuscript, she's either the leading lady, usually being recognized by Griflet, one of the Knights of the Round Table, as the one holding Arthur's hand as he enters the boat. Because basically, I think I might have accidentally shaved this out of my notes. The final battle's more or less the same in all of these, like, Arthur stories, which is that he ends up fighting this great final battle, and in the versions where he dies, it's because of Morgan taking his, like, scabbard that protected him, and he gets, like, gravely injured in battle. So in this version where this all happens, because you remember how Morgan was sent to that island, or went to that island where all the sorceresses were to learn magic? They come and they pick his ass up to go bring him on to this island to heal him. But she is with that group of ladies and gets recognized by one of the old Knights of the Round Table.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And a subordinate to an other who is just generally unnamed also recognizes her. And so the latter part of the post-Vulgate versions of the Question Mort both seem to revert to Morgan's friendly attitude towards Arthur at the end of the Vulgate cycle, despite the post-Vulgate's own characterization of Morgan as thoroughly evil and earlier fierce hostility between them. As Arthur steps onto her boat after Camlan, but assures he is not going to return, she makes no mention of Avalon or her intentions when taking him away. His supposed grave is later said to be found mysteriously empty, but for his helmet.
Empty.
But his helmet's there. So that's another fun thing.
But not a
In
sword.
some versions of this story, after she brings him on the boat, she kills him, and that's the end, and he never returns to Camelot. But in some versions, because he still never returns to Camelot after he gets on that boat. That's the thing. So, he gets on the boat. Some versions, Morgan kills him because she's evil and she wants him dead anyways, and he never returns to Camelot that way. But in some versions, he never returns, and people find his grave, but his grave is empty. But it has his helmet in it.
Huh. That's kind of weird.
I know. So, that's pretty much it. That is my very quick but like riddled story of Morgan le Fay, one of the most notorious witches from history, kind of, I guess.
An icon, a legend.
We love her.
A brother fucker.
We don't love that though.
We don't love that. That's the part where that's very questionable about her character.
Yes. I'm just hoping that's like maybe one story out of like thousands of story where they were like, oh no, in this version she's a brother fucker.
Someone just made that part up to disparage the icon that is Morgan.
That's what I'm going with. It's bad. They're trying to give her they're trying to poo-poo on her image because they're like, she's too powerful and, you know, be embarrassing.
She's the wisest woman in the world.
Yeah, she's the wisest woman in the world. We gotta take her down a peg. You know, it'd be really embarrassing if everybody thought she was fucking her brother.
All I'm saying is, if she really was the wisest woman in the world, she would not be fucking her brother.
That's the thing. And I think Merlin was so into her that I don't think any other man would have been comfortable with that anyways, regardless of who they were. They'd be like, the man...
brother.
Yeah, they're like, the only man in any of these stories that can do magic wants this woman. He can have her. None of us can do magic. He's just the Lady of the Lake, Morgan, and fucking Merlin. And we're not crossing them.
Maybe Lancelot, but that's about it.
But Lancelot's got big dick energy. He can do whatever he wants. Lancelot is Pookie. Pookie can do whatever he wants.
He's got lots of feelings, but not lots of thoughts.
No, Lancelot does give a little bit of himbo energy. How powerful do you gotta be, though? First of all, Morgan, obviously, and everything that she does. But also Lancelot to be besties to King Arthur, leading the round table, be fucking his wife, and then fucking his sister? That's mad moves, man. That's crazy.
It is. Honestly, that kind of puts him at icon level behavior as well. So I think him and Morgan are perfect for each other.
That's the thing. I find it not surprising at all that at one point they were fucking each other. I was like, it was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time.
It had to happen.
Yep. And that is the end of today's episode, I believe. Is there anything you want to add, Jen, to this spooky episode?
No, take it away with our end credits, Em.
All right, it's been a while, so hopefully I can do them properly. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Wheel of Crime if you want to check us out on there. We also have our website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com if you want to look us up on there. We have our email, where if you listen to this story, especially the one about King Arthur, and you're like, that ain't right, email me. I do not care. Email us. We do not care. We would actually love to hear from you because
we would.
You guys are our listeners. You guys are our Pookies, and we love hearing from Pookie.
It makes our day.
It makes our day. We also have our Patreon, which is Wheel of Crime at Patreon. And if you like today's episode, make sure to leave us a review. Obviously 5 stars is appreciated. If we don't give 5-star energy to you, I'll cry about it. But I'd settle for a 4-star if you guys would rather do that.
Any stars you want to give would be so generous.
It would be, because then we can reach out to more listeners and all that jazz, and that's always good stuff. And then, like Jen mentioned, we do also have our Google Doc, which is now available year-round, basically, for you guys to enter your stories into. If any of our episode kind of ring a bell with you, and you're like, oh man, I have a story that relates to this, you can send it in. We do, as the show implies, we do the full circle of crime and wheels around,
etc.
Etc. Yes.
Crime and etc.
Yes, we do crime and etc. It's really good over here. We're having fun. Yeah, and like I said, I think that takes us to the end of the episode. I hope you all had as much fun as we did.
Yes, that's it. That's all. Hope you have an excellent Hallows Eve, and we will see you all next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.